Welcome back to Animal Crossing New Horizons. I'm Dear Darling. As you see what's going on our lovely island of Fawnhollow today, where it's the 1st of March. Whoa, we made it to March, I suppose. I don't know, there's not really much that happens in March. Like Easter sometimes happens in here, Chinese New Year sometimes happens in here. I don't think well, I mean, they are happening this year, of course. I don't know if they're in March. Let's see. Easter 2023. No, April 9th. Okay, so the Ides of March happen in March. You know, if you ever want to celebrate the death of Julius Caesar, I think. I should probably know that, you know, we studied it in English, but oh well. Good evening, everyone. Right now in Fawnhollow at 7:55 p.m. on Wednesday, March 1st, 2023. You also know the new banner just dropped in Genshin Impact. Okay, if this is the last you're going to hear of Genshin Impact. Actually, genuinely, but my pulls went pretty well. I managed to pull Dia's weapon, I pulled Dia, and I pulled Sino, so, you know, I can't really complain, I suppose. Apart from the fact that Dia, as a character's mechanical kit is incredibly atrocious, but, you know, that's a story for, you know, the actual Genshin Impact YouTubers to talk about, rather than me. We're going to talk about more positive things, because we're here to vibe and have a good time, you know. Let's not dwell on things which makes you, you know, I think sad is a bit strong, you know, like, not to say that, you know, you can't, like, media properties, I suppose, can't evoke feeling in you, I suppose, but, you know, and also not to say at the same time that it's really like a be-all, end-all. At the end of the day, it's just a video game, you know, but it's a video game which, you know, goes downhill, you just kind of stop playing it, and it's fine to feel sad, I suppose, if, you know, something you love just turns out more disappointing, I suppose. Maybe love is a bit of a strong word still, but, I mean... it's about the point of media properties in the first place, or, you know, art in general, is to be able to evoke some sort of emotion. you might contend that point being like good emotion, bad emotion. You should probably be a bit more specific, and I suppose that is, you know, fair enough, and it kind of is context dependent. And there's many things are quite difficult to round things off in a very neat way in broad strokes, because things tend to kind of matter depending on what's going on in, well, everything, to be honest. But we're not here to talk about that in my monologue. We're here to talk about, what can we talk about? You know what I did see recently? I think it was on r/videos or something. It was a video of some guy he basically made the same, like, catching video game in, like, 8 different game engines or whatever. Like, he did it in, let me think, he did it in Unity, Unreal, Godot? I can't remember what on earth that one's called. Godot, something like that. And then something, when, like, Scratch was one of them as well. So it's sort of like a, you know, it brought me back to, back in my day, we used Scratch in our IIT lessons. Not when I first started IIT lessons, mind you. To, well, learn, I suppose, the basics of programming. It was actually like during GCSE year or something. And I said this a million times before, we had IT lessons in our school, except for, like, our year 7 ones, they were doing an experimental thing, which they tried in our classes. They were like, let's teach IT to their class, but we'll teach it in a different language. So we had a business studies teacher teach us IT in French, and we learned no French and no IT, essentially. Except for, I remember that username is username is nom de passe, and computers l'ordinateur, and I remember "sir" and "sous" for on top of and underneath something, and that's it. To be perfectly honest, so didn't really learn much there. IT wise, only learned things I already knew. So wasn't the greatest amount of educational business, I suppose, that could have been for us. But yeah, I can't remember what we did in year 8 and year 9. I think year 8 and year 9 we started learning Microsoft products. I remember using Microsoft Access and Microsoft Excel at some point, and then I don't really remember the rest of it, to be perfectly honest. But then at some point, you know, during the GCSE year, I took a course which was basically meant to kind of be an IT course, except for it didn't actually teach you anything. It was so open-ended, where we basically worked towards this qualification, except for the teacher didn't give us much in the sense of structure, which made it, you know, you can imagine how well it went, being like, hey, you know, 14-year-olds, go make your own curriculum, kind of. It's not quite how it is, but, like, teach yourself programming and make an app, which is basically the premise of a thing. We didn't make an app, I'm going to be perfectly honest, but we still got a certification, yeah. But one of the things that we did, I think it was during that class, it might not have been during that class, it might have been during something else, I can't remember, where they introduced us to Scratch. If you don't know what Scratch is basically a fantastic, I can't remember who made it, I assume it's like Microsoft or something, let's see. Scratch programming language. I don't know if it's a language or... Oh, MIT, yeah, that's it. one of those big companies. It's basically like an introductory programming language for, you know, if you're basically starting to get with the concepts of programming. And not normally it's for like children's and young teens, I suppose, to get started. But if you know you're an adult and you've never tried programming before, I'd say give it a shot as well. See if it, you know, makes sense to you. It like introduces the concept of things like for loops and variables and like if statements. I don't know why I started with for loops necessarily, but it's the first thing that came to mind. But it does it in this like block building way, and it's actually pretty cool. You can actually do quite cool stuff with it. You can't exactly make like absolute masterpieces. Like I'm not saying you can make like the next God of War or something. Or maybe you could. I mean, okay, technically you could. I think it would run incredibly inefficiently, but technically you could. Oh my god. The Joy-Con drift is too much. Okay, you definitely know the Joy-Con drift is getting too much if it's actually like selecting other options for you when you didn't mean to. But yeah, Scratch is pretty cool. Like I remember we followed a tutorial thing, and I can't remember what it made us do. It was the main character is called Scratch, and we're like a cat or something, and we made him like jump or something. I can't remember what we programmed. It's like the first game, but already by that point I already knew how to program in JavaScript a little bit. So you know, it was sort of like putting the cart before the horse, I would say. But oh well, you know, any experience I suppose is valuable experience in the end. And it's pretty cool. Anyway, the guy made a video game in all of these different engines and whatnot, and it's pretty cool, to be honest. You know, I was considering learning Unity at some point to make some simple video games or something, because you know, video games is of course a passion of mine, but I think a lot of more of my passion comes to lend into the design elements of it, rather than necessarily the actual creation and programming part of it. Not to say I don't like programming is fun, I just haven't got around to it. So I don't know, maybe at some point I'll learn Unity, maybe I'll make a game, I don't know, maybe I have too many irons getting the fire right now, you might say, and that's also fair enough. I've always wondered what sort of game I make, and I'd assume it'd be some sort of puzzle, maybe not necessarily entirely a puzzle game, but one with puzzle-esque elements, or maybe it'd be like another indie RPG or something, and then, you know, I'll make the next Undertale, one-shot, Omori. Trying to think of another one off the top of my head, but I can't think of it. Like, I can picture it, but I can't remember what it's called, like that girl with like many hands and a girl with like a TV for her head or something. There's another one as well. What's that one where it was like something in a something in a something in a something? Like milk in a bag of milk or something like that. And that's also the title of my next rap album. Milk in a bag of milk. I don't know. For somehow I'm losing it. Anyway, it was like game engine things are pretty cool. Like I remember I had a friend back in uni. He was interested in like video game development, a little bit like that sort of thing. Like he hadn't learned programming or anything, so he started learning a little bit about Unity. I remember he showed me like in Unity he made like it was a very simple thing. He just like you played as like a cuboid and you just walked around like an environment where other cuboids or collisions, and I was like, whoa, that's pretty cool. And I don't know if he ever actually ended up making a video game of that sort of thing, but who knows? I mean, I can see myself making a video game in the future, and I would not rule it out. You know, it's up there the list of things probably I'd want to do. You know, make a video game, make a webcomic, make some songs, make an album maybe. You know, I mean, you might be like, hey, dear darling, that's like a lot of things to try and like make in one lifetime. Maybe it's possible. You never know. There's a lot of things I like to learn to do, so why not? I suppose give them the opportunity if you can. But yeah, I'm trying to think what experience I have with game engine. Actually, you know what? There is what was it called? I don't remember what it was called. It wasn't Mugen. It was like there's a fighting game engine. It was the same one that the My Little Pony Friendship is Magic fighting game was actually being made on, I remember, because I think it was around that time. That sounds about right. It was like start of secondary school or something, where I was like curious about, you know, I was following the development of this game. If you don't know, is a My Little Pony fan-made fighting game based off the characters from My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, and they were making it in an engine, a fighting game engine, which I cannot remember what on earth it was called, to be honest. But I was like, oh, you know, I want to, you know, try my hand at it. And, you know, I suppose if you want to do that, I would say in retrospect, if you want to make like a fully fledged proper game, I would probably use a different engine, maybe use Unity or Unreal, or because like Tekken's made in Unreal, right? Or you can use that the one about Skullgirls engine, which I don't, the name escapes me right now. I assume it's called like the Lab Zero engine or something. Provided you want to buy a license for it, or I don't even know if you can buy a license for it, but anyway, But anyway, I can't remember. I made it, like, experimented with making like a mini game and that sort of thing. And I remember, you know, making my own like sort of fighting game. It was not a good fighting game, mind you. It was pretty terrible. You couldn't really combo, but I remember just like sort of experimenting with it. Like I had a stickman. There was only one character, a stickman character. The stickman character could like punch, could kick, could do like, I can't remember what sort of. I think it had was it a projectile or was it like a shoryuken? I can't remember. It had some sort of like special move, and then it had like a super move where it basically did Cerebella's level 1 super X Cerebella or whatever it's called from Skullgirls, where they're just like windmill armed, that sort of thing, and it had like hurt boxes and everything. It was technically a legitimate fighting game that you could actually play. It would be terrible. You'd be like, this is something you would see like, I don't know, on the bottom of Congregate or something back in early 2000s or something, but it was something I made, and you know, there's something, I suppose there's something rewarding, I suppose, from doing it. Because at the time I was like, it'd be really cool to be able to make a fighting game, and then like make me one of the characters, make some of my friends some other characters, and then we'd be able to like play this fighting game against each other or something. Obviously that's quite like lofty and ambitious goals, especially because I didn't play fighting games at the time, really, apart from Super Smash Bros. Brawl, so you know, not really the most competitive, I suppose, of all the Super Smash Bros. Games. But it was one I had a passing interest in, I suppose, probably due to Fighting Is Magic and my own opponent game, I suppose, being in the works. So, you know, I had all these ideas. I remember, you know, I'm trying to think of a concept. I remember my concept that I thought myself, like I wrote down like all the moves and everything, was I was going to be like a multi-hit character. Like I had a vague idea of like fighting games terminologies and things like that. I was going to be like a multi-hit character who could like shapeshift, and they'll like shapeshift into like animal and do like animal parts, you know, like Beast Boy from Teen Titans. So one of them being like, the punch would be like a cat's paw comes out and it'd be like a scratch and like uppercut into like something like a talon or something, which doesn't really make sense because I guess the talon would be on the feet. I don't know. I like wrote out all these moves and whatnot, and like that was a general idea. Like I was going to be an on-point character with multi-hits who was good at building super but maybe had like low damage, which, you know, if you know me now, you'd be like, that doesn't really sound like a character which reflects you properly. Yeah, I think now if I were to like hack at it again, I'd probably come up with different mechanics for myself, I think, and probably more supporty and much more gimmicky mechanics, because that's very much my sort of style. I will say my favourite fighting... not fighting game, because I don't even know if it's even that popular, but I think Weavile plays like this in Pokken Tournament, but I also was not very good at Pokken Tournament, so I don't really know. But I love fake out moves, like looking like you're about to start a move and then like immediately cancelling it and then going into a different move, or like faking and psyching people out. That's definitely the sort of mechanic I would put on my self-insert character. And I would say fighting games are definitely one of the best or most fun video games to imagine like kits for, like, you know. Despite the fact I'm not an expert at all in fighting games, it's really fun to think of like what a fighting game character could do, like weird mechanics and how it would play and that sort of thing. Despite the fact fighting games actually have quite a lot of nitty gritty, I suppose, in mechanics, like, because, you know, frame data is really important, hurt boxes, hit boxes, the actual shapes of them matter, you know, priority, etc, etc. There's a lot of hidden mechanics in fighting games, which is why they're so, you know, I talked about it before, they're so hard to get into in the first place, but they're really fun to think about, like, theoretically be like, oh, what if I did X, Y, Z, or what if I did this? It'd be really fun, wouldn't it? Wouldn't it? Anyway, I don't know where I was going to go from here, to be honest. Legitimately, head empty. Just there's nothing rattling around in my mind where I was just like, yeah, this is what I was meant to talk about. What was I saying? Yeah, I don't know. Fighting games are just easy to think about. So I don't know, maybe look out in the future, maybe I'll learn Unity, maybe I'll make a fighting game with all the characters I got in my mind, and or me and my friends. Technically, I have made, technically kind of a game with me and my friends, except for it's a card game, a board game. Yeah, a card game, I suppose, is probably more accurate. Tabletop game. You know, I made it for one of my friends' birthdays, and, you know, it was like 3 years ago, 2 years ago? I can't remember. COVID times sort of blurred together in my mind. I think it was... No, maybe it was 1 year. It was not his most recent birthday. It was a birthday before his most recent birthday. I think. Yeah? Was it that one? Maybe? I don't remember anymore. It was a card game or whatever, where basically the characters weren't really us, they were just more like manifestations, I suppose, of us. Anyway, we played that game a total of like twice, I think. No, I think it's been played like 4 times. Let me think. Once on his birthday, once on his most recent birthday where I revamped it. and once in between, I think. So yeah, it's been played a total of 3 times, which is not really, I suppose, proportional to the amount of man hours that went into creating it in the first place. But I mean, now I know how to program using Nandeck. Well, I say program using Nandeck is not like a hardest programming thing. It's more like a programming system. Really, really cool tool, by the way. If you ever want to like make mock-ups, that's the word, of like a card games or like any sort of card things in general, or like you need to mass produce like images which have like small iterations on each other, use Nandeck. Nandeck is fantastic. I cannot recommend it enough. Yeah, so I don't know, maybe we'll play again at some point, maybe we won't. Like, I think certainly part of the problem is I'm not like too crazy about like card games or board games in general. Like I like my tabletop role-playing games, love me some D&D, but like most of the other sort of like board games I'm quite like indifferent to. In the fast pace, it's sort of just like, I never really would suggest to play it, I suppose. And plus, it's not the most amazing game in the world, is it? It's kind of there just for the gimmick of it existing in the first place. So I guess, technically I've already got a self-insert character. I guess that's not a video game, you might argue. And that's also a fair point. I don't really have a retaliation to that, but yeah. Radio exercises and sell fruits, hit rocks. Okay. I think we can probably do that all in time. So yeah, I don't know, game engines are pretty cool. I mean, there's a lot of cool things you can do, Like, super popular games are like made using very simplistic engines. You don't have to make things using Unity or Unreal Engine or whatever. I mean, if you're a big development studio and you have like a lot of manpower and you can hire people who know certain like languages or engines, etc., you might as well go for one with the most capability, because you'll probably need the flexibility built into the system, or the efficiency, I suppose. But then, if you're just an indie developer, it's a fantastic thing with indie market, I suppose, of video games, is the fact that it allows individual creators to be able to, make these things and, find success with it in the first place, Undertale, of course, one of the most popular games of all time, my favourite game of all time, was made using RPG Maker, that one. A lot of other popular games are made of using simple things. I wonder what most popular game out there that was made using Scratch is. I can't say I know, especially not off the top of my head. Maybe it doesn't even exist. Maybe, there is no commercial game made releasing using Scratch, but still, be cool to think about. There's probably other popular games also made using RPG Maker, but Undertale is very much of a sort of the one that people know, isn't it? So it's a bit hard, I think, to compete with that. For I'll say notoriety, but again, notoriety has bad connotations for fame, I suppose. The fame and the fortune, I want it all. I'm just sort of trying to get the conversational muscles going, because I need to record the final few Happy on Paradise episodes today. Only 3 left, the final 3. I was going to record one yesterday, way too tired. So I just didn't instead. I just didn't have it conversationally in me. But today I think I got a conversation going, I've done some Genshin Impact like wishes and pulls, and honestly they went pretty well, and maybe that's got me like sort of psyched up a little bit about it. Even with a whole situation of surrounding it. Again, you can look it up if you're interested in yourself, or I suppose if you are interested in yourself, you can just like leave a comment, and I guess I'll explain in one of the episodes. It can be an interesting conversation topic. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. Anyway, I'm going to round this episode off here instead of actually doing radio exercises. So if you have been watching, this is Joy-Con Drift. If you have been watching, thank you very much. It's been Animal Crossing New Horizons. I've been here, darling. Likes, comments, subscription, shares, greatly appreciated. Twitter, Discord down below. Oh my god, I cannot sit still. Twitter, Discord down below. Hope we see each other again. But for now, it's our farewell. So until next time, bye bye. Oh my god, bye bye for now. You got interrupted. No, you know what? Let's have a good bye bye. Leave it on a good night. Bye bye for now. Wonderful.